You have questions for all posterity.
Stuart, what comes up for me this time and another time too is around the need to grow. Because you talk about the need to grow is the catalyst for the actual growth. And my question is around what causes the need to grow? Because in my experience, it's normally like challenges more on the negative side, more in the pain or suffering and wanting to shift, out. So could you just talk about like that, where that need to grow comes from?
Well, where it comes from is very easy. It comes from a need inside oneself, to first of all have a spiritual life. Second of all, to connect with what's infinite in the universe. Third, to overcome the pain, the difficulty, the tension in oneself. Uh, and it goes on and on. Fourth, all the problems of the world that are presented to us daily. How do we deal with these things? How do we get strong enough inside ourselves to be able to, live in this world without this world consuming us? All of that comes back to a very simple need inside. When you finally realize this, and you realize that there's no real way we can fix all the madness that goes on in the world. We have to fix ourselves. We have to get closer to God. We have to get closer to spiritual enlightenment. We have to get closer with a oneness with the universe. That kind of hunger can be sparked, literally by, all the events of our lives, by the tensions inside us, by the insecurity in us, by the problems that we have. It also can be sparked by the joy and the love that we find inside ourselves and wanting to sustain that joy and that love, by building a system inside that can do it. I mean, there is nothing, frankly, that happens to any human being that cannot, spark deep need inside them. Nothing. It just depends upon how you see it. I want to sustain the openness of my heart. How am I going to do that? How am I going to perpetuate my connection with higher energy in the universe? Everything. I want to overcome, the imperfections that exist inside me. I want to get stronger than all the bullshit that goes on in the world. I want to be a happy person. That in itself should spark need that goes so deep that we're willing to overcome anything that manifests in ourselves in order to attain a state of happiness. And I don't mean just, momentary, feeling of elation. I mean a sustained happiness in ourselves, a joy that really stays with us no matter what the hell is going on inside us and in the world. All of this sparks need, because need is the pathway, to spiritual enlightenment. And then it also sparks will, because in order to get past ourselves, we have to internalize our will and use our will in a very strong way. We don't want to continue. We have to get stronger than the imperfections. Well, if you don't have a strong will that you internalize, you're never going to do it. There will always be the blocks and the things that'll keep you from becoming spiritually enlightened. So need and will really work together. One has to need to grow, then you have to have the will to do it. Because there's always going to be tests. There's always going to be difficulties. There are always going to be things we have to overcome. And if we don't have that intensity of will to do it, nothing can impede our quest to have a spiritual life. Now, this isn't fanaticism, it's just sanity, because everything in life takes joy and love and happiness away from us. Not everything, but a good deal of life takes all of those things away from us. So the building of need, the building of will, the building of a chakra system, the building of a strong inner life, all of these elements work together. And it's our responsibility to develop the craft inside of the use of the mind and the breath and the chakra system. And I mean, the chakra system is like a musical instrument. It needs to be tuned. It needs to be carefully and consciously respected and taken care of. You know, and when your need is to get to God and you understand what your instruments are, you're never going to take them for granted. You'll never assume, you know, oh, well, you know, the chakras are not working today, but they will be working in 2 days. And, you know, this kind of thing, putting it off, procrastinating. You know, one is aware of what their instruments are, and we need those instruments in order to grow. Our need is to get to God. So we have to be conscious about the way we use the instruments we're given to us. And when all of these things work together, the result is literally a spiritual life. But to get all these things to work together, we have to overcome so much past conditioning and patterns that we've developed, that many of them are just negative, you know, because we're so used to spending our time beating ourselves up, being negative about things, being cynical about things. All of that deepens need, because once you get a taste of higher energy, I mean, it's unforgettable. And it really sparks a very deep inner need to grow and get closer to God, to continue having that taste and continue having that experience. I mean, you know, it's interesting. I'm asked that question so much, and every time I answer it, it comes out a little bit differently. You know, it's so interesting, you know, and all right, you know, I mean, look, there's no exact answer to anything in life, and we have to extract, you know, the juice of what is given and digest it. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank you.
You're welcome. A very good question, Wendy. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question, Stuart. In your writing, you say, when life and death have become one, you're well on your way to the warrior's path of enlightenment. Will you please talk about that?
Well, you know, we live in a world where everything is black and white. We live in a world where everything conflicts because we see it through the mind. And when you see and visualize things through the mind, everything is going to be in conflict. Everything is polarity, you know, and life and death become that. Death becomes the serious enemy. And because death is a serious enemy, life becomes a serious enemy. You know, and people are scared, you know, of death, but they're not really scared of death. They're afraid of life. They're afraid to truly live in this world and have a, you know, a profound creative expression of their life, of what they are as a human being, what they are in their connection with God. So they shelter themselves. They live in little cubicles in this world, without embracing the world, without opening to the possibilities that life has to offer. And yes, there's danger in possibility. And the only reason there's danger because we have to go past ourselves. We have to get out of our comfort zone and go past ourselves. And this is the key to, truly overcoming this polarity that exists in the human mind. Another key is using the mind for its real purpose. Its real purpose is not to analyze the world, or you never believe that based upon what goes on. Its real purpose is to open the very core of our being so that we are really grounded, and by being grounded, we overcome the fear of stepping into the unknown. We overcome the fear of polarity. We overcome all of that conflict that goes on in the brain. We're not afraid to step out of a safety zone, because the whole idea of life and death is that we think life is a safety zone. It's not a safety zone. One day, life has to give way to death. And if you open inside and develop a system that is strong enough, to create harmony and balance inside and to unify opposites, a dialectic of sorts, you realize life and death are one. The only thing that dies is this body, and my God, with all the aches and pains we have, good riddance. Soul of a human being exists forever. It's endlessly evolving, endlessly moving from one incarnation to another incarnation, endlessly learning, endlessly growing, and endlessly getting closer and closer to a oneness with God. I hope this is clear, because this is really important stuff.
It's not only clear, it's beautiful.
Well, oh, beautiful, schmootiful. I don't, it has to make practical sense. If you don't go away from this, doing something about the cubicle you live in, doing something about the world and not expanding yourself and trying to move to a higher level of consciousness. You understand? There's always going to be this structure and fear of life and death. You never will get over the fear of death until you get over the fear of life. Because they're one and the same thing, There's no separation. One gives birth to the other. I always love that Shakespeare, a tale told by an idiot. We live in a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying, I love that. It's just so brilliant, nothing. And that nothingness is truly what all of life is about, becoming nothing inside, so that all of the universe can flow through us. And this is a battle of dragons. It's a battle of, then you become a spiritual warrior when you can slay all of those, things that keep you from truly, unifying the polar opposites in yourself.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care who you are, every human being is confronted with this. Every human being has to deal with this. We're born, we're given a period of life, and we leave, And there's so much fear. We think we're born to stay forever, but we're born to learn how to evolve consciously so that when we leave with nobility of soul that embraces God, embraces higher energy, and we create a oneness between life and death that enables the soul to consciously evolve to another plane of consciousness. If not, we have to come back to ultimately learn how to do this. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes,
Brenda.
shoot.
Well, you spoke about anger that you had to go through at some point in your life.
Well, between
and-
the age of 16 and 25, I was the last angry young man here. But go on.
Well, could you speak about how this meditation assisted you to deal with it, like the types of changes you saw within yourself and how that happened?
Well, look, the first thing I had to learn is to have patience with myself. The first thing I had to learn is before I met Rudy, it took 25 years to get into the condition I was in. And it wasn't going to go away because I sat down and did 1 or 2 meditation classes. So I had to learn to have patience with Stuart. I had to realize that there was a great deal of anger in me. And a lot of the anger, I didn't even know why I had it, but it was there. There was a lot of insecurity in me. When I was a kid, I was depressed half the year, and always fighting against depression. And I had to have patience with myself. And through the meditation, I learned how to draw the anger. I learned how to draw the depression. I learned how to draw all the insecurity in myself into the hara, into the chakra below the navel, and transform all of that insanity into chi, into harmony, into balance, into that which became a foundation for my life. And I discovered the exact thing that was killing me. When I began to use that energy consciously, the exact thing that was killing me began to give me life. Because I was no longer, pissing it out on the world. I was no longer, upset at everybody and, consciously being angry. But I internalized it. I said, Stuart, you've got to transform this inside yourself. And if you don't do this, you will have this for the rest of your life. And it was only Rudy who, profoundly taught me how to do this. The same way I'm trying to teach all of you how to do this. Because the only way of getting rid of anger, depression, insecurity, et cetera, is by drawing it down into the chakra below the navel, transforming all of that stuff into chi. This takes 2 things I spoke about earlier, a need to do it and the will to do it. And you become a spiritual warrior by not being defeated by your anger, by your insecurity, and by your depression. You can slay all of those demons inside yourself by learning how to draw them into the chakra below the navel and transforming them into chi. And that energy will move through the sexual area and, and that marriage of the yin, the yang, the Shiva, Shakti takes, and it'll activate Kundalini. It gives birth to Kundalini, which is the pathway to enlightenment. And every human being can do this, because I said earlier, we all have the tools, but we need to tune the instrument. If you don't have a tuned instrument, you're going to sound pretty shitty in an orchestra, You'll be kicked out of the orchestra immediately. And it's the same way with this. We have to tune the instrument. We have to refine the chakra system. We have to get it working, the way it's supposed to work through the conscious use of the tools we're born with that make this happen. Anyone can do this if they learn how to do it. Believe me, when I was 25, 24, I mean, literally living on the edge of a cliff. Trying to make sense of what I could not make sense of. And that was driving me crazy until I finally realized, Stuart, bring it all down. And it took sitting with Rudy for, I don't know, it was maybe a year or two that it took for me to finally hear him say that. And he would talk about it all the time. When I finally heard it and began to implement it, transformed my life, completely transformed my life. And it's made it possible for me to be here doing what I'm doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that's clear. I'm trying to keep this in language, that is not metaphysical and, in a very basic language that people can understand and hopefully apply to their lives. But have patience with yourself. As I said, it took maybe a year or two of sitting with Rudy before I even heard this. And he spoke about it all the time, all the time.
Mm.
And I finally arrived at a place in myself where I could truly hear it and then apply it to my life. So have patience with yourself, Don't get impatient with things and just keep working so that organically you arrive at a place where you begin to hear these things and then you use them to develop your life.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? So funny, when I finally began to hear these things, I stepped out of the kingdom of schmuckdom into a more conscious world. Rudy stopped calling me a schmuck.
Became a mensch.
No, well, okay, I guess you call it a mensch or whatever. I became a little more conscious about the way I use my energy and the way I opened inside. And then it took years after that of being in Texas and running an ashram and running a meditations center in New York. I mean, we're talking about what, 20 years right there doing all that. And in all that time, I was developing and refining the chakra system to be able to sit here and do what I'm doing today. But I was working, I had no choice but to do what my service was to God. And all of that worked to help me evolve and grow in my life. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Actually, it was 30 years. Yeah, it was 30 years, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Okay, if there are no more questions, then we'll have meditation on Sunday. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Hopefully you'll make the class. I mean, look, a number of people have missed this class. It's just almost a tragedy not to have sat through this and absorbed this level of energy. So try to make the classes, it's literally an hour and 15 minutes of somebody's time every day. And look what comes. I mean, it's extraordinary what a gift this is, And I'm here too, listening and learning. I'm not here teaching, I'm listening and learning. And all of you being here make it possible for this to take place. So hopefully on Sunday, I'll see everyone, and God bless you all, and thank you, and have a wonderful evening, and bless you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Night.
Thanks, Stuart.